Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It's Thursday, August 4th, 3 minutes past 10, Kiev time. Another evening with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to see you. 153,000 watching us live. Over 100,000 click the like button. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that stream in your accounts and other social media, and subscribing to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer station if you have not done that yet. Do not forget to click the bell to get notified about new streams. Alright, let's start. Olexiy, you guide us through what happened during the last day. We have the usual headbutting on the north of Kharkov region, near Dementivka, up there, on the gray zone, gray-green. There are some guys walking in that gray area, and we're telling them not to. Now, near Izum and Balakleya, there are some news. There is a village called Mazanovka in that area. It was taken by our troops today. So, on traditionally strong and important Izum area, our troops actually went to offensive. Before that, we took them out near Barvinkova. This is somewhat between 12 and 2 protrusion. We moved them in. And also there is, at the bottom, there is a gray area, kind of 6, between 5 and 7. The gray zone, that's where we pushed them back. And also near Velika Kamyshevacha, that tiny red protrusion at 9, we actually took a village Dmitrievka in that area, and every smart human, not even military, looking at our movement can start thinking. Actually, you know what, I would say Russian command needs to start thinking about what is going there and where all these maneuvers are going to. But we'll see. 2 taken villages is not a big change on the front, not a serious threat to their side, but just took a couple of villages and just pushing them back. Are you implying on actual offensive over there? Well, we are already advancing, so it's just a lot of them near Izum, and one needs a lot of troops to push them back, but it's interesting. Whenever one army hits another in the side, in the flank, it's always interesting. Another reason to think about that is that Izum group was always pretty big, but in 120 or so days of active fighting in that area, they failed to move anywhere, and now they're being pushed over. This is somewhat sad for the Russian command, right? I don't know how they report that. Ukrainians are pushing us, and they got army, they got Wagner, they got good logistics support in that area. Pretty interesting, right? Now let's go down, look towards Bogorodichne. There is an interesting protrusion there towards Pasika. Very earlier, a bit earlier, it was a Russian territory. Now it's a notable indent in their front. Why did that happen? Because we started pushing them back. And one wants to say that Russian guys probably don't feel themselves too comfortable when all of a sudden there is Ukrainian army on both sides of you. And if you go more to the left, to Velika Kamyshevacha, there is also a protrusion there. And, things may happen there. So we'll see what is going to transpire on that front. But Ukrainian military is in offensive. I can only imagine what would Russian propaganda do if the army would have taken 2 villages. They'd probably be screaming about major success. We can see that in Pisky, where they barely moved forward, but they already spammed their media sphere with a lot of bravery and other reports how they're pushing Ukrainians back. Near Svetogorsk, near Priship, there are some brave people shooting over the river, but from the Russian side, but failed to cross the river. They also cannot advance anywhere in the north. We're holding them. Now, if we look at Bakhmut, that gray area there, they're slowly advancing. That's hundreds of meters a day, maybe, that gray area, but there is some movement there. Also in the south, they're trying to surround our troops, general direction of Otradovka, kind of middle of this map, and they want to surround our group at the Kadyma protrusion, in the middle of that bottom protrusion here. And we understand that, and we'll see how our command will fare. Russian troops are doing the same goal they had before, reaching for it, reaching Bakhmut, reaching Krasnogora. But we'll see how that happens for them. Now, as for Pisky, they're going. See, Avdiivka is in the middle of the map now, and there is a red protrusion tentacle coming from the north at around noon, and there is another little arrow at 6 around Avdiivka. So they're trying to surround it some way. And are they claiming that they'll take Avdiivka? Well, war is a simple thing. Whenever our troops decide to leave Avdiivka, then they'll take it. Otherwise, they won't. So for us, the main resource is army. When you have no army, you have no territory. So we'll see what is logical. And for us, people are most important. For Putin, reports are most important. And they admit the amount of troops they lost taking some village. So it's their style, but I'm sure if anything happens, we always can maneuver or take back. Near Pisky, here zooming in, they pushed a little. If it exists, if that push exists, it's minimal. On the real reports of both sides, nobody really moved anywhere. And our artillery is very active there for the last day, so there haven't been any more lyric posts online from our soldiers how bad it is there. So that Pisky crisis, if not past, it's stabilized and managed, if that crisis even was. Near Marinka, they also tried to do some offensive maneuvers, but got their asses kicked and withdrew. And Zaporozhye, they're still concentrating their groups, area of Takmak, Melitopol, and Nargadar. There are less troops here than in Kherson group, but in that triangle, Nargadar, Melitopol, Takmak, there are probably about 12 battalion tactical groups. Not too much, that would not allow them to do an offensive push, but it would allow them to pretend, act in different ways, or at least defend their positions. They're also concentrating some troops in Crimea, we noticed, and there may be some battalion tactical groups there that may go either north to Zaporozhye or northwest to Kherson. So in Kherson, it appears they're finishing aggregation, and still Kryvyi Rog, Nikolaev appear to be their targets. And then there is another group that is trying to stop our movement near the road Nikolaev Kherson, and that really bothers them, because remember that famous picture where one can see Kherson in crosshairs, so that bothers them, and they're trying to set up some defense. Also, they're very concerned about our territories taken on the other side of Ingulets. Those Remember, we talked about some of our successful river crossing. So they have overall 15 immediately groups on the front line, 4 to 6 groups in their immediate support, and a little bit further out, so total about 30 battalion tactical groups in this group. Is it enough to start a push towards Nikolaev? No, these guys are very beaten up. These are poorly fitted with soldiers, with fighting power. And we also keep shelling them. We destroyed targets near Olexiy, near Chernobyevka, near Novaya Kakhovka. So we destroyed, big warehouses there with a lot of proper long-going explosions after. We also successfully attacked Kherson Bridge. This is one of the other bridges across the river. I think these guys are dead men on that side of the river. Because however you scream about your success, even before you started the actual movement, you already lost 2/3 of your logistic supply lines. So it's just a usual Russian war-fighting style when they're not concerned about the lives of their soldiers. And they'll give an order to send them, but I'm sure it'll be pretty sad for the soldiers. On a personal level, it's very sad for these soldiers in terms of perspective on the military. It appears to be a good opportunity for Ukraine. So, you think there's no threat for advancement of Russian army in the south? Yes, exactly. I do not see what can they advance with. You cannot support the advancement on barely working 2 bridges and some pontoon support. And whatever concrete you pour, whatever pontoons you throw, it's to the next missile hit. You don't need to destroy for example, the whole dam to prevent them from crossing. But after shelling, you basically destroy the top level, so they need to do repair work before anything can cross. And then they repair and then try to push a little more through. So it's difficult. And that's how we limit the amount of troops crossing it. And what about their warehouses and ammo? They're trying to, but we're taking it out very effectively. So they're aggregating a little bit here, a little bit there, but they cannot aggregate too much of resources. So it makes it more difficult for them. I'm just commenting on the news and comments in the public forums where people are discussing that we've been waiting for Ukrainian offensive and now apparently there is a Russian offensive instead. And now we don't know what is going to happen. And what does it change, Mark, on a big scale? It just pushes the dates for Ukrainian offensive, but it would create better conditions for guaranteed recapture of Kherson. That happens. Sometimes dates move. But, our people, some of them lack strategic level. It's difficult to go up to that level from tactical, and people very often react very emotionally to, 200, 300 yards offensive, and react very emotionally to stories of soldiers who survived under intensive artillery shelling. But this is reality of war. On the other hand, it is death of Putin's regime. That's what's happening. They're wasting thousands of men to take a village. Where would that logic take you? After you lose 2,000 to 3,000 men on taking a little village. But they're convinced this is effective. They're saying it's willy-nilly, but they're moving. So what? You've been moving further on what? You're moving on T-62 tanks, and then what? T-34? And with what power? With what forces? If you could have seen the condition of this Kherson group, that they're calling a serious force, it's very sad. One probably wants to cry looking at their current condition. Very beaten up, not enough equipment. Today, I think on the Kharkov direction, our motorized infantry got into one of the division positions and wanted to do close combat, and Russian troops just ran away. And it appears that the guys who worked there, whom we captured, and some of the bodies left on, it appears that they're just contract people who were there for 3 to 6 months, maybe just paid a little, and they just ran away. Yeah. So, and that group is considered to be one of the strongest in this war. So, you decide. Now, there's more information, not confirmed yet, but it's walking in different social media and Telegram channels that Iranian UAVs appeared on the front. Yes, we saw that. We heard about 46 of them arriving to the front line. Have you really found them? Have you seen them? We got we saw a couple. How effective are they? Well, UAV is not effective by itself. The effectiveness is determined by the operator. So that machine is a very earlier generation UAV. Appears to be crudely built, but they can achieve certain goals. And frankly, even a quadrocopter can achieve certain goals if you're smart enough and you can drop a grenade with it. So it comes down to the operator. Yeah, we saw that. My father, back in the day, was teaching a lot. And he mentioned that when I asked him who produced the best impression on you, he said because probably the most impressive ones were Vietnamese and Ethiopians. And when I asked why, he said Vietnamese because they studied for 18 hours every day. They came daily, they were very active. They were finding ways to learn, to study, practicing a lot. They just wanted to fight and to win their war. And if you look back in Vietnam War, to shoot down American aviation, that was much more superior with a basic anti-air defense. One needs to be both creative and have a goodwill to do that. So, looking at these UAVs from Iran, this will not become a decisive factor. It will be just another episode. So, to have a meaningful result, one needs 400 of them, not 40. What they're saying, 40, 46, it's nothing. And also one needs to learn them, to know how to use them effectively. That's not so simple as it seems. Initiative matters a lot in the war. Who has initiative, who wants to win, who is not sitting and waiting for the enemy to act, that's the one who is winning. And the one who doesn't want to fight, you can equip him with the top modern equipment and armor, and he'll lose them all. So right now it's a fight of motivation too, happening. And I don't think Russian troops in their current condition show any special wish to win this war. They're very demoralized. And I just know the situation in the groups on Kherson and Zaporozhye. The news of having to do another offensive, softly speaking, does not excite them. And these are the parts that the troops that were beaten up in many parts of the front. Some of them actually were up in Kiev at the early days. All right, let's discuss. And they're asking more things here. We did not discuss it in the previous streams, especially yesterday's, but yet Belarus got into some attention, and I think Kuleba mentioned that if Belarus would decide to do something against Ukraine, there'll be consequences and diplomatic issues. Perhaps Dmitry Ivanovich said something like that, but there is no threat from Belarus. Do you think that there is no threat for real? Yeah, I don't believe there is any threat from Belarus. I know their current situation, and yeah, you are a prohibited terrorist there, right? Yeah, they prohibited me from their media by Mogilov court, but I have data. Some birds brought me on the tail about their recent military exercise. 90% did not show up, and 10% they could not even reach. Mark, what offensive can we talk about? We have to talk about it because it is in the news. Yeah, of course we need to. Yes, agree. Here's the thing: if they talk about it, we need to address that too. Exactly. So our task is to prevent these rumors from appearing. I do not believe that is a threat. I do not see the resource for that threat to appear. And it's better for us to do that than that Russian stooge Konashenkov that does daily reporting from the Russian command. Over 300,000 are watching us, more likes. Thank you. Despite the end of the week, you're still watching us and sharing links. Thank you for being active viewers. We really appreciate that. And for your subscriptions and for subscriptions to the private tier stations, you guys rock. Thank you. Let's touch some international topics here. I think it was Vice Minister of Defense of Estonia to actually implement visa restrictions for Russian citizens. How do you think one can implement that? I don't talk about the consequences of it, but technically, do you think how difficult it could be? Probably one should start thinking about consequences themselves over in Russia. Probably it's easier to change power than face the consequences. It's difficult to talk about technicalities here because remember Kaliningrad region of Russia when Lithuania said no, we're not letting them, and then EU decided no, we need to still let Russian trains through. So one hand somebody can suggest that for a vote in EU, but it's important to see how they vote overall because we understand that Baltic countries would be rooting for that, but I don't know how the rest of the Europeans will react to it. And yeah, this is a vice military commander of Estonia suggested that. So another good news was that yesterday Switzerland decided to join the 7th package of sanctions. The country that's usually very neutral, that is staying on the fence in any conflict, but they decided to join that, and those sanctions are good. They are economy and finance in their crosshairs, so they're coordinating their efforts with other big players. Although Switzerland refused to treat our wounded, they are joining into economy and financial action against Russia. This is somewhat a sign. Switzerland joining actions, that's kind of a significant landmark, milestone in this conflict. So this is always a concrete fight for concrete sanctions. Nothing is easy, and we have to fight for every name in the list. I'm glad that we have our Estonian partners, and even on the Russian side and the opposition who are helping us to build these lists, and groups like MacFall and Yermak who get a lot of their support. And joint actions helps us to make sure that opponent does not evade the sanctions. This is difficult work, and it's a gradual but very strong pushback. I understand, but it's important that as long as there is progress in this area, it creates a certain pressure that Moscow has to react to that somehow. Because the moment you weaken it a little, they'll feel some recovery. And we've seen these motions before. Remember Boeing spare parts and grain and agriculture products. When they got a little bit of respite, they were very giddy about it. And that compromise through Lithuania about the transport to Kaliningrad region. So that was making them happy. But whenever Europe is getting together to push them back, that's good. That's a good sign. So what do you think also about that gas story? Is Moscow ready to go and lose money and create a difficult winter for the countries of European Union that are dependent on Russian gas? To Germany, and not only, the other countries as well, because they refused to take the Russian turbine to repair the supplies on Northern Stream 1, not 2. So do you think the West can give in to not be so hard on these 6th and 7th packages of sanctions, especially on natural gas? No, I actually, on my side, I don't see that much of giving in. I see a very active campaign on the West for saving natural gas, for being effective. Germans are talking about restoring their nuclear plants, restoring some of the coal electric facilities. And they start to understand that whenever you're dependent on the enemy's energy supplies, this is a weakness. So they do have consensus on refusal or limiting the use of Russian gas. And the matter is more of ways to compensate for that and duration, time frame. But they are limiting their use. Germany limited the use altogether, I think, by 25%. So these are huge numbers. And of course, it is summer, it is filling the storage, and they'll do more things before the actual trouble with natural gas starts. But one should also not forget that there is United States, there is Qatar, and other countries who will try to compensate for it. So it's mostly a matter of filling up the storage, and they'll be saving. Actually, more concerned appears to be about electric energy, not gas. And we are supplying electric to them as well. So they're connected, right? To a degree, because there is also hydroelectric and other ways to get it. So everybody in general, what I'm saying is getting ready for that situation. Kremlin threatening to create that nuclear, so to say, natural gas catastrophe in Europe revealed its true face. And Europeans understood that they won't be able to sit out this crisis and they need to do something about it. So Europe, even Russian allies, cannot really say they're doing well, or somewhat allies, with their better pricing for gas, because Russia is in a difficult position and is threatening everybody. So yeah, they're making decisions, and that winter might be a little tough, but I'm suspecting next winter will be way better than this one. And in the meantime, imagine the scale of a problem to be being solved, because big dependency is being eliminated. I was young when they were building that gas pipe in the north, in the Soviet Union, and cutting ribbons and supplying Europe. Because remember that situation when Arabs decided to stop selling gas and oil to the West, and Americans had a crisis. They changed the kind of vehicles, the engines. The Korean and Japanese cars entered the market on that wave. And Soviet Union, that was the time when Soviet Union built gas pipes to Europe. And special services actually had a task set in front of them that were using that to get influence in Europe, to corrupt their politicians. And many politicians in Europe looked like independent ones, but they were actually Kremlin agents. And they were pushing the rhetoric supplied by the USSR in terms of energy market. This is a difficult story lasting from middle of 1980s. Imagine the consequences how much corruption was supplied through that gas pipe. So if that thing can get resolved in one cold winter, I'm delighted. It's really, it will be a difficult winter, but this is a resolution of a huge issue. So, and I suspect with the preparation level that Europe is doing now, they probably will be okay. And yeah, I don't think anybody will freeze. I think they'll just have to bring more. It'll be more expensive. True. And next winter, everything should be all right. In 2 years, they'll get rid of 50-year-old dependency. I wish all our problems were resolved this way. I'm sorry, but yeah. Okay, so there is another scandal that's going on. International organization, Amnesty International, that revealed part of their report on Ukraine, where they were talking about Ukraine military placing their forces near civil targets, endangering civil targets by doing that. And the blood of civilians is on their hands too, because that's part of their strategy. Personally, I did meet with Amnesty International for quite a while when I was defending Pussy Riot. I was in their Washington headquarters plenty of times, and I saw most of their leadership at that time, talked to their first faces, general secretaries, the person ruling it. It's kind of modern there. It's people hired, contractors working. It's not people appointed to that organization for certain achievements. So that plays a part in their stance. In Russia, they had a representative who was a special services functionary, and they always were infiltrated by Russian special agencies in Russia. So I could see that also following the destiny of Savchenko, that I also worked with, and they refused to call her the prisoner of consciousness because Russia accused her to be involved in active attack in fighting. And I did appeal to them saying, well, listen, this is an accusation of one of the parts involved. You cannot rely on that opinion. But they refuted that. They said, well, this exists and we cannot give a prisoner of consciousness to the person who was involved in some active fighting or accused of active fighting by one of the sides. So, and one of the directors was a person with the last name Kuminaidu. I think he's a fraud. So it finally culminated in that report that the country that is defending itself from large-scale aggression, they're trying to accuse that country that they're doing something wrong. So I want to ask your opinion about that one-sidedness and that weird engagement of international level human rights organization. I think this situation with Amnesty International is pretty clear. Our legal expert and our representatives of the President's office reported already their opinion on that. I want to show how that works for those who are interested. So if there is an rights organization working, special services get tasks, especially Russian ones, get a task to infiltrate that so they can have both influence and knowledge of what is going on. So as a person from the Intel community, I'm telling you this is how it works. And they do influence whatever reports these services, these agencies are pushing. So a person not familiar with that may ask, why is that important? Well, it is important because these organizations have financing. By the way, Amnesty International is a Nobel laureate organization, so they have enough financing. They got more support from different international orgs. So it matters whenever Russian agents in that organization affect the way they produce reports. And Russia was doing that for 20 years under Putin. They were corrupting these organizations, whichever existed in Russia, to a degree that it could be corrupted. That same MAGATE, the nuclear org, and they also have dependencies and finance from Russian side. People who know the subject, they know that influence. And that's what becomes the basis for these reports that they publish once in a while, and that becomes additional support for Putin's regime to point finger and say, look, this international organization did something. And they researched, and this is their paper, and it's not so simple. It's complicated. And that can be pushed back to weaken the pushback on the Russian Federation, to slow the sanctions, to slow walk some other decisions. So Russia is fighting a large-scale war, including through these Amnesty International type organizations, which are calling Ukrainians, don't fight for your cities, leave them, don't endanger yourself. And at the same time, in that statement, there is not a single word about Russia. I haven't heard them talking about Yelenivka death of prisoners of war under Russian control. They were quiet as mice on that. And then all of a sudden there is that release about Ukrainian military and their mistakes. So every statement doesn't exist in a vacuum. Every statement exists in a certain atmosphere. So if they pre-worded that statement saying that Russian Federation started a criminal war campaign against Ukraine, and during that fighting, of course, there are some issues on both sides. For example, this is a Ukrainian. That is one context. Another context is Ukrainian is not fighting proper. Ukrainian is doing this, and this, and we think it's a bad practice. So I want to say to these organizations, guys, we have the right for everything. We're defending our lives and we're defending our territory. And you need to pray that we don't use all of the opportunities that we have. We are continuing to be a European army, so we're trying to follow Geneva Conventions and everything on the legal side. But at the same time, this is our decision, and you have to be happy that this is the way we are doing war. Because all these reports, you can, roll them up and put them, where. You know how they reported me when I actually confronted them about it? Why they're not doing that in Moscow, why they're not attacking Moscow. They said because they have a representation in Moscow, and if we start attacking Putin's regime, they will lose that. So they can attack Ukrainians defending, but they will not attack the country which started the war. This is an old concept of let's feed the cannibal with children, the organizations that support that, so the cannibal will not be too upset. I'll tell these orgs, go fuck yourselves. Your authority is not too high anyway, and you're just putting yourselves as the Putin's pad. And you just revealed your true colors. I also know, Olexiy, what you think about Navalny, the Russian opposition leader, but there was an interesting story there. So when he came back to Russia after being poisoned and treated in Germany, Amnesty initially called him to be a prisoner of consciousness when he was a political prisoner, and then all of a sudden Amnesty International took down that status from him just a month or two later. There was a big scandal about it, and they said, we looked at the situation in detail and we decided to take away his prisoner of consciousness status. What happened when we asked? Did something change? He is just sitting in prison. There was a huge scandal, and the scandal was because, Moscow pushed back. And the guy was nearly dead. He was poisoned by Putin's regime, and they still pulled the status back. So internally they had investigation, and they had data who and how pushed on that decision, and they actually do have names and who organized for that, but they'll never release that officially because that's Putin's influence. Yeah, I think they're just Putin's agents. It's funny to see international rights organization that pretends to protect somebody's rights, and they cannot even defend themselves from a cannibal regime. This is weak. As for Navalny, as you said, my opinion about him. We're not pessimistic about him. We're careful about and cautious about him because remember his statement that Crimea is not a sandwich that can be uneaten back. But we would welcome him coming out and saying that he changed his opinion on Crimea. So we're just cautious. Oh, he made a lot of statements from prison right now. It just nobody hears that much, but he made a lot of statements saying that he supports Ukraine, that he condemns war, and he supports Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom. All right, so over 400,000 people watching us. A lot of click the like button, so please continue doing that. Thank you. And to conclude today's show, I will add at the end of the stream there with a video or audio rather from a Russian agent Shari who is hiding in Spain now. On my request to reinstate criminal investigation into that person in Ukraine, Lithuania DA started another case against that person about money laundering of the funds that he received from Moscow. And so to support, because he was always saying that he never received money from Moscow, to support that statement, I'm giving you a 5-minute audio where he basically tries to refutate everything, but yet cannot really answer to the sources of money that he received from Russia. Mark plays a 5-minute clip of Anatoly Shari, the accused in money laundering, trying to refutate the funding he received from Moscow, but refusing to define where did the money come from, and confirming that it was his bank account and the money were used to purchase real estate in Europe. All right, dear friends, so that was a 5-minute recording. That agent was claiming he did not receive that money from Moscow, but he used 600,000 euros, and there was a bigger amount spent, but this is just one of them that they traced. That official document from Spain that he purchased a house not far in suburbs of Barcelona. So he's the owner of that construct. That's how Moscow generally funds their agents. So now there is a question about, since that criminal case exists in Lithuania, because it's a single jurisdiction, that he might be deported to Lithuania for interrogation, and one might hope he may be extradited to Ukraine from there, and there we can probably peek into a wider network that was working through his political party, assisting in gathering intel for Russian occupant forces that were helping to find the fighters, the Ukrainian soldiers from the earlier campaign who were executed by Russian forces. So right now, the difficulty in his life is extradition, not the case in Spain, but the extradition to Lithuania that may take him to origin of his crime over to to Ukraine. So I'm turning here to my brethren from media and police force in Lithuania and Europe to conduct a proper investigation, and we hope that in the process of it, he will end up also in Ukraine, where we can get more data from him about his whole network, and he can probably help in recapturing the cities and uncovering Russian agents of influence in Ukraine. That's it for today. We're good for tomorrow, right? So we'll continue tomorrow then. Thank you so much. Thank you, dear viewers.